So what intrigues you about Penn State playing Maryland?
Maryland coming off that loss to Temple last week. I mean, I believe that Maryland is still dominant this year. I think they're on balance, but not dominant. Like they're much improved.
They are.
I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win the whole thing, but I really think that it's going to be a very competitive game between Penn State and Maryland.
So you think Penn State should be on upset alert?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that Penn State should win, but it's not going to be like a 68-20 kind of game. I think it's going to be probably Penn State winning probably by 14.
Penn State's only favored by 6.5.
Well, I'm kind of helping them out.
Trying to encourage them. Okay?
Yeah, it's kind of motivate the Penn State fan base. What numbers stand out to you during this game that you looked up?
KJ Hamler, the wide receiver from Penn State, averaging 24.5 yards per reception. That's
must be nice.
Yep. Then you look over at Maryland. The running back Javar Leaks averaging 13 yards per carry. So both of them's got their playmakers. Quarterback Josh Jackson for Maryland's got 8 touchdowns and 724 yards passing. Sean Clifford is still, what is he? Is he going to be the next in the line of great, game managers, or is he going to rise above that and be a guy that can go out and win you a game for Penn State? I don't know. You look at these boys, their offenses are prolific, especially Maryland's. They're averaging 537 yards a game. And Penn State's averaging 473 yards. Defenses, they're kind of close. Penn State's allowing 323 yards, and Maryland's allowing 298. It's mainly the passing. Both teams are, because they've kind of been up on people, and teams have had to pass, because when you look at their rushing yards allowed, I mean, Penn State's only allowing 70 yards a game, and Maryland's only allowing 73.7 yards a game. So they're both stingy on defense as far as allowing you to run. But I think a lot of that's a microcosm of just because of the games they've been in such high-scoring affairs on their offense that other teams have just had to try to catch up. For Pitt.
Yeah, I do think that. This is going to be an upset. This is.
You don't think so?
No. It's a Friday night game on FS.
But it's at Maryland.
Yeah. And then but it's going to be a Friday night game on FS1. Start the weekend off right with, you never know. It could be upset, could not be. Who are you rooting for? If you had
Neither one of them, but I'm still thinking Penn State will probably have just a little, because Penn State lost a lot of guys to the NFL last year, but the coverage never bear at Penn State. So
nothing to give wrong, nothing to get past this Maryland coach. He's definitely helped that team, helped the university. Changing on football, making that football team, on the map.
Yep.
So, what other game?
Well, I want to talk about this Big 12 game of Baylor and Iowa State. I think these two coaches mirror each other a lot. So I want to take a deeper look at this game. What I like about this game is these two coaches. Matt Campbell and Matt Rule, they're a lot alike. They're both from the north. I think Matt Rule's from New York City, is it? And,
yes, New York City.
And Campbell's from Ohio?
Yep, Ohio.
Yeah. Well, these guys, they have this blue collar kind of work ethic here, and they've both taken jobs that are considered like hard jobs, or they're stepping stone jobs. And these guys, are in a conference with some big boys, and they've managed to take their teams to bowl games. Matt Campbell has won 8 games 2 years in a row at Iowa State, and they haven't done that since the 70s. And if his buyout wasn't so big, somebody would have already come and got him. And then looking at Matt Rule coming over to Baylor, I think last year was his first season there, or second, first. And they, after coming off the
incidents,
if you will.
off the field incidents.
Yes, unreported incidents, and where they lost a bunch of their players, and they thought, well, this is going to go back to being the Baylor pre-Art Briles, one that couldn't win. And then Rule comes in there in his first year and wins 7 games. And then here comes the NFL calling wanting him. I mean, they saw what a great job he's done. So, I mean, I like these two teams. I'm really interested in them, a lot, because it's so cool to see good coaches at some mid-level tiered schools.
Well, one thing that makes me think about the whole Penn State issue that they had a couple years ago.
Right.
And they brought in that coach is actually now coaching in the NFL.
Right.
So things can happen, that.
Right. But that's a different thing, because Penn State has been a national brand, since Joe Paterno turned them into one.
Right.
They were a national brand for 50 years, and
but
Iowa State isn't. This guy, if Campbell stays there, he could go down as the greatest coach ever at this school.
Well, I'm comparing like the Baylor incident that.
Oh yeah. And
what Penn State dealt, and the coach how the coaches changed that program and were rewarded by the NFL.
Right.
So later on, that's definitely something. But they are playing against each other this week.
Yes, they are.
Iowa State pretty much spanked the won really heavily last week. I think they won over by 60 or something points.
Yep.
But this week should be a really good game.
To me, it all starts. It starts with those quarterbacks. Brock Purdy. Dude, his numbers are like video game numbers. He's 75 of 102 for 980 yards, 6 touchdowns. And then Charlie Brewer is 53 of 74 for 665 yards and 7 TDs. He hadn't turned the ball over. But, these are two really good college quarterbacks. Don't know how their NFL stock is seen, but as far as just college quarterbacks, I'm going to love watching these guys. And the receivers, both of them have good receivers. Keen Nwangu, who has 12 catches for 106 yards. Running back, he's 12 carries for 106 yards. He's averaging 8.8 yards per carry. And then John Lovett for Baylor's got 22 carries for 186 yards. He's averaging 8.5 yards a carry. Tariq Milton has got 13 catches for 304 yards for Iowa State. And Denzel Mims has got 18 catches for 249 for Baylor. But, these are just two great for what they are, they are really intriguing.
Iowa State was picked third to win.
Yes, and
got
beat by the number 14 team in the country, Iowa, and that was
that was a close. That was
their punt.
It was like a punt. It was like
hit their guy in the back.
Yeah, to lose, I think by a point or So, I predict Iowa State really high. Baylor coming out of nowhere.
Matt Rule, he had the Colts offered him that job, and he turned it down because they'd already hired their staff with the previous coach, and he wanted his guys, and rightfully so, because you just don't take a job and not bring your guys, because if you go to the Colts and those guys aren't loyal to you, they don't know you, they all want your job. So Matt Rule wants to bring his guys, and to go back to Baylor, that was pretty big. But look at this. Let's look at some of these numbers here, Michael. Points per game. Iowa State's averaging 39.3. A lot of that would have been higher if they wouldn't have played such an outstanding Iowa team. And Baylor's averaging 46.7. Points allowed, 21 for Iowa State, 14.7 for Baylor. Total yards, 531 yards a game for Iowa State, 497 for Baylor. Baylor's runs the ball better than them. The yards passing, Purdy, 349 yards per game, and Brewer, 243. Yards allowed, Iowa State's allowed more yards. Played tougher team, too. 333 yards as opposed to Baylor's giving up 261. But who are you taking in this one? Who do you think is going to win this one, Michael? They're playing at Baylor.
I want to pick Iowa. My heart wants to pick Iowa State, but I believe Baylor's going to do the upset.
Really? You think they will?
At home, and I can't pass anything on Baylor. They've definitely surprised me, but that fluke loss that Iowa State had was they had a lot of elements. They had the weather element delay
big
for
delay, 3 hours or something?
3 hours, and then to lose to a point to a rival team.
Yep, cross
and
state
and they just definitely had the revenge of the previous week. I want to say Baylor.
You're taking Baylor? All right. I think Iowa State's going to win this. I think Iowa State may just be a little bit more rugged on defense. I mean, those guys really will get after you. They play hard. So
nothing wrong. This will be a divided fan base because Iowa State fans do travel, and it's not that far from
straight down I-35. Right?
So
next game I want to talk about, Michael. I want to talk about Kansas State versus Oklahoma State.
Okay.
Reason I wanted to talk about this one, even though Oklahoma State is coming off a loss, they're 3-1, and Kansas State's coming to town 3-0. But Oklahoma State is fun to talk about because there's so many weapons on that team, man. I mean, at one point, Tylan Wallace was leading the nation with it still is 6 touchdowns already, 20 catches for 473 yards. He's averaging like 23.6 yards catch. And then Chuba Hubbard was the leading rusher in the nation with 103 carries for 642 yards. And then the young Spencer Sanders is 62 of 96 for 890 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. In Kansas State, Skylar Thompson, 36 of 53, 486 yards, 4 TDs. James Gilbert, 43 rushes for 277 yards, 3 TDs. And Malik Knowles, 9 catches for 137. That really doesn't tell the story. The story on this one is like, are they going to be able to keep Oklahoma State on the sidelines? Are they going to be able to keep their offense off the field? Because if they don't, it's going to be long, boy. But they're rugged. They play defense. Kansas State does. They're only allowing 256 yards a game. I'm like, okay. They're only allowing 118 yards passing. That's unheard of. You're playing high school teams, like, what?
Mm-hmm.
That would be phenomenal. And they're only giving up 137 yards rushing. Oklahoma State's allowing 415 yards. You got to remember they just played Texas, and they gave up. They're giving up 239 yards passing and 175 yards rushing. Offensively, it's going to be just 100 yards difference because total yards, Oklahoma State is averaging 533 yards a game, whereas Kansas State's averaging 454 yards a game. Yards passing, not prolific, just 174 for Kansas State, 263 for Oklahoma State, but the rushing, they're pretty much dead even at 280 and 270. But this one's going to be just a contrast in styles. Gundy's going to come out there with that, just the video game weapons he always has. Like, where do these kids come from? They're usually 2 and 3 star recruits, and they somehow come through Oklahoma State and make their way to the NFL. I'm like, God, man, these kids are just so explosive on offense.
So who are you picking in that game?
I don't know, man. Snyder's he's a heck of a coach. I mean, has he got enough guys can he inflict his will? Can this defense impose their will on this offense of theirs, of Oklahoma State's? Who are you taking?
I'm taking Oklahoma State this week. Bounce back from the Texas loss. Coming home,
Boone Pickens died.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very emotional game.
It is.
And I'm going to say Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick Oklahoma State. I think it's going to be a little closer than what some people think, but Oklahoma State's only favored by 4 points. I mean, Kansas State is, I'm telling you, man, they're very, very physical. They are going to come in and be rugged, and they're going to try to control that ball and hold on to that ball and just win the time of possession and hopefully win the game. That's what they try to do when they come in. So what's the next game you want to talk about, Michael?
The Notre Dame in Virginia.
Yeah, let's talk about the big game. Let's talk about that one.